Hi there, and welcome to a Blender tutorial. In this video I'm going to show you how I created this phone. I created this phone for a music production tutorial that I posted on my Instagram a few weeks ago, and I think it turned out pretty cool, and it wasn't really that hard to create either. I also posted a shorter video on the process of creating this phone on my Instagram, but this video will be a more in-depth guide, a step-by-step guide for you to follow along. The first thing we're going to do is to add in a cube, so you press Shift A and search for cube. And now you want to shape this into a kind of brick or rectangle. So to do this you want to press S, Y and scale it down on the Y axis. And then you want to scale it up on the Z axis, so you're going to press S and then Z. And now we have sort of like a brick phone. And the next step we want to do is to go to the modifier and add a subdivision surface and set it to 3, both the viewport and render. And now go into the edit mode by pressing tab, or you can go up here to the left corner and switch. So we're going to switch to edit mode. And now we want to add the edge loop. And to add the edge loop, you want to hover over where you want to put it and press Ctrl R. And now you want to press enter and then enter again. And now it is stuck on the middle here. What we want to do now is, while it's selected, press Ctrl B and bevel it to move the form to the sides, as you can see. Maybe something like that, and we will do the same here. So press Ctrl R and then enter 2 times and then bevel it by pressing Ctrl B. Something like that maybe. And then we want to go back to object mode by pressing tab and then go to the front view. So you can go up here and press on Y. And now we'll go to the front view of the phone. Now go back to edit mode by pressing tab and add another edge loop in the middle here. Ctrl R for edge loop. And then while you're hovering over it, press enter 2 times. Now while it's selected, press G and then Z to move it up. Maybe something like that. And now we want to scale it, but only on the X axis. To do this, you press S and then X. And as you can see, we're now only scaling it on the X axis. To maybe something like that. And to make it even smoother, while it's selected, you can bevel it. So press Ctrl B. And if you scroll the mouse wheel up, you will get a better resolution of the bevel. Something like that maybe. Press enter and tab to go back to object mode. Also, I want to say I'm on a Mac, so if you have a PC, you might have some different commands for your Blender things. Yep. Maybe we want to scale it, make it a little bit thinner, so press S and then X to scale it down on the X axis again. And maybe a bit thinner here, so S and Y to scale it down here. Something like that. Now we want to apply the subdivision surface. So hover over the subdivision surface and press Command A. Now it's applied. So if you go into the edit mode by pressing tab, you will see that we have a lot of faces here. And that's good because we want to have more control over the details later on. Right now, we want to create an edge for the phone here, like a frame around the phone. So what we want to do, go into the edit mode and then have this mode, edge mode selected here, and press one edge. And we want to select a full row here around the phone. So while we have selected one edge, we then want to select the edge next to it. And before you press it, hold Shift Option and then press it. Now the full edge is selected. Now it's going to be a bit complicated, so you need to follow along closely. So the first thing you want to do is to duplicate this edge by pressing Shift D. Before you do anything else, press Enter to put it in to the back into place. Now we have a duplicate of it, but it doesn't look it because it's on the exact same space as the original edge. To separate it now, you will need to press P and separate by selection. And as you can see up here, we now have cube.001. So if we go out from the edit mode, up in the left corner here, you can see that we have another object. And don't move it or anything, because now we're going to go up to the object and convert it into a curve. And now go into the data here, while the new object is selected, and we can manipulate it as a curve. So what we're going to do is to go down here to depth and just increase it a bit, and it's going to look weird, and that's because we need to apply the scale. So while it's selected, press Command A and apply scale. Now we can move it around. Maybe something like that. Because now what we want to do is to scale it on the y-axis. So while the edge is selected, press SY and scale it on the y-axis. And as you can see, we have a nice frame. Now parent it to the phone by selecting it and then the phone and press Command P and keep transform. So now we can move the phone around and the frame follows. Nice. Now the next thing we want to do is to create a screen here. And the easiest way I think to do it is to add a cube and use Boolean to intersect it. So what we want to do is to add a cube into the scene. Press Shift A and search for cube. Then you want to move it up. So go to the side view up here on the X. Select the cube, press G and then Z to move it up on the Z axis. And then you can scale it down by pressing S and scaling down. Now we want to move it forward in front of the phone. So press G and Y to move it, just so it's barely inside the phone here. What we want to do now is to scale it down even more so we can go into the front view here so we see everything from the front. And now start scaling it on the X axis by pressing S and X. And then you can move it around by your taste, maybe here. I think that would be good. It's really important to get this right because when you have used Boolean, you can't undo it. So either you will have create a backup for yourself if you're not satisfied with the placement of the screen. Because now we're going to select the phone, go to the modifier and search for Boolean. And take this drop down and select the cube. And while it's selected, you will press Command A to apply it. Now it's going to be really cool because when you delete the cube by selecting it and pressing X, you have created a screen. The thing I want to do now is to go to the phone model here and add a modifier and search for a remesh. I'm going to type in 0.01 and maybe your computer won't be able to handle it, so maybe turn in like 0.03 or something, but I'm going to do 0.01. The lower the number, the more detail you will get. The next thing we want to do is to apply the remesh. So you're going to select the phone, press Command A and apply. After that, we want to add the buttons. The easiest way to do this, I would say, is to press Shift A and search for sphere, UV, and you get the sphere. And now we're going to do the same thing as we did with the cube. We're going to move it forward. Press G, Y to move it on the Y-axis, S to scale it down. And now we can start to shape it into a button. So I'm going to press first SZ to scale it down on the Z-axis. And then I want to make it more flat. So I'm going to press SY to scale it down on the Y-axis. Maybe something like that. I'm going to go to the front view by pressing Y here. And now I'm going to press S, scale it down even more. And then I want to put it firstly to the left here. So I'm going to press G to move it around. And then rotate it slightly a bit. And then scale it down even a little bit more. And the next step is to duplicate it a few times. So I'm going to press Shift D, duplicate. And right after, before I move it, I'm going to press Z. So I'm going to move it straight down. So it's going to be exactly underneath. I'm going to repeat the process, Shift D and Z. I'm going to even make them even tighter and maybe scale them down. Because now we want to add the middle buttons. So I'm going to press Shift D and then X to move it into the middle. And now I want to reset the rotation so it's flat again. So I'm going to go up here and just drag down here and do 0 on everyone. I also want to make sure it's exactly in the middle. So I'm going to lower this to 0. And I don't want this one to intersect. So I'm actually going to move this row. No, actually, I'm going to scale every button down a little bit. But you see, if I scale it down here, it's not scaling down in a structured way. So I'm going to go up here and change it to individual origin. And now I will not scale the full selection down, only the individual objects, like this. So maybe something like that. Now they're not intersecting, so that's good. I'm going to move these ones even closer. And now I'm going to repeat the process, duplicating these ones, Shift D and Z, something like that. Now, when I add this side also, but to do that in an effective way, I'm going to select all these on the left and then merge them together by pressing Command J. And then add a mirror modifier, drop down and select the phone model as a source. Cool. Now we're going to apply it. So hover over the mirror and Command A to apply. And now we want to merge all the buttons together. So press Command J. Press G and then Y to move them in, like that. And now, what we actually want to do is to do the same process with the screen to use the Boolean. So I'm going to duplicate these buttons here. So we're going to rename them to button And now select them, press Shift D and Enter to duplicate. And we're going to hide the first buttons. So now we only have the duplicated buttons up here. So we can name button 2. And we can rename this to phone as well. What we're going to do now is to go to the phone, select it, and add a Boolean modifier again. And use the drop down for the buttons. And now, while we have selected it, press Command A to apply. And then delete the copied buttons. And unselect up here to the right the original buttons. But as you can see, it's not a huge difference. So go to the front view and select all the buttons. Go into the edit mode and make sure you have selected scaling on individual origins. Because now again, we can scale each button down accordingly like this. And now we get this nice little, I don't know what to call, between space here. That's really nice, and we're actually getting close to phone now. But in my phone model in the video, I had like a frame around here, and that's not hard to do, so we're gonna do it straight away. So for that, I wanna add a plane. So I'm gonna press Shift A and search for plane and move it in front of the phone by pressing G and Y. And then rotating it 90 degrees on the x-axis. So press RX, you type in 90, and then enter. And go to the front view and scale it down. And we're gonna start the modeling process down here. Something like that. But to model it in an effective way, we want to mirror it. Use a mirror modifier. So we're going to select the plane here and we're going to rename it to frame. And when the plane is selected, go into the edit mode, pressing tab, and then add a loop cut again. Control R and press enter. Now you select the vertices, press X and then delete the vertices. Go out from the edit mode and add the mirror modifier like that. And before the mirror modifier, you add a solidifier to make it a solid frame. So if you increase the solidifier, you see, it becomes thicker. And after the solidifier, you want to add a subdivision surface, put it to maybe like 4. Now we're going to move it in by pressing G and Y, and we're going to put it right there. And now we can start modeling. So go into the edit mode, and we're going to start by extruding. So select both these vertices and press E to extrude. And we can just move it around like this. And we want to move it around the full screen like this. So you just press E and you might want to move around the vertices. So for example, around this corner, so they become a bit smoother. So you just grab the vertices and move them around and then mark them and press E and continue. You can rotate it by pressing R. But I'm just going to extrude up here and rotate, extrude, rotate, and to make sure it's like a 90 degrees angle up here, you're going to press S, then X, and then 0 to scale it to 0 degrees on the X axis. And now you can, while these are selected, and then G to move them in like that. Exactly. Now we have a frame. So the next step is that we want to have some more space up here for the phone speakers, for the ears, when you talk on the phone. So to do that, we might need to adjust the scaling just a bit. So I'm going to press, while selecting the phone up here, I want to press S, Y, and scale it even a bit more. Oops. Before you do that, you might want to parent the buttons to the phone. So select the buttons, then the phone, and press Command P. And now we can scale it like that. You might need to scale the frame also, so select the frame afterwards and press S, then Z, and scale it up. And then you might need to do some minor adjustments to the frame. And maybe for the top here, we want to go to the side view, and as you can see, it sticks out in an ugly way. To fix it, just make sure these top vertices are selected. Go to the side view and press G to move them in just a bit. Maybe something like that. Maybe also take these side vertices here and go to the top view. And we can just move them in just a little bit like that. So it goes along the phone shape here. And what we want to do now is to add symbols to the buttons here. The first thing we want to do, Shift A and search for text. And we get a text here. We want to move it in front of the phone. So first thing we're going to do is to rotate it so it stands up. So select the text, press RX and then 90 to rotate it. And then, as you can see, it's backwards. So we need to rotate it 180 degrees. So press R, Z, and type 180 and then enter. Go to the front view and we want to put the text on the first button here. So we're going to scale it down. Oops. Then go to the side view again and move it forward. Press G and Y. to move it forward, something like this. I would probably write the first letters of the alphabet here, A, B, C, and then go to this A down here, and we can firstly do so all the text is from the center. We would want to make these letters a bit thicker. So to do that, we can firstly extrude them and then use the depth to make them a bit smoother. Then scale them down and rotate it how you want. And then you will just repeat this process for all the buttons like this. The next one, you want to reset the rotation. So you select it, go up here. And this one is still going to be 90, but this one is going to be 0. And then we're going to do the next letters, D, E, F. You just repeat this. You may want to put like numbers or I don't know, emojis or anything. But I'm going to just do this off cam so you don't have to see everything. So I think this looks pretty cool. So what you want to do now is select all the texts here and then the phone model last and press Command P to parent it. So it follows along when you move it. Also you want to parent the frame, of course. So you do the same here. Now we want to refine the buttons here. So select them, go to modifier and add a subdivision surface and put it to 3. The next you want to do is to go to the frame here and add a subdivision to it. Also, maybe we can put it to 3. And you don't need to apply it. The last thing we want to do before we go into the shading stuff and the material creation, we want to add a speaker down here or up here. I'm going to actually do it down here, I think. So we're going to do the Boolean technique again that we use for the screen, but this one for speakers. So press Shift A and search for a cylinder and move it in front, and then rotate it on the x-axis by pressing RX and then 90, and then scaling it down and scaling it on the y-axis, and keep scaling it down and going to the front view. And we're going to put the speaker down here. What we're going to do now is to apply the scale, and then go to the modifier and add array modifier. So, which means we make copies and instances of it. So we want to make the count to 4 maybe, or maybe 5 actually. And then we can adjust it in the X here, maybe something like that. And then while it's selected, you can press Shift D and duplicate it and move it down on the Y-axis. And just do that maybe 3 times. Now apply the array on each of the rows and then select them. While everyone is selected, press Command J to join them and move them into the phone by pressing G and Y. Something like that. Now it's just really simple. Select the phone, add a Boolean, use the drop down to select the cylinder, delete the cylinders, and you have speakers. So for the shading, I'm going to use cycles. And one important thing is to go here to the render, go down and select standard as color. And the render settings will be, I use this one. I render in 4K and I use these settings for the render, noise and sample. So I'm going to put this in 4K. The first thing I want to do is to add a camera. Press Shift A and search for a camera and move it back on the Y-axis. And I'm going to add another window here and press the camera so we see the camera view. And right now you can see it's not looking on the phone. So we need to fix that. To do that, we will need to add an empty object. So press Shift A and search for a sphere, empty. And press enter. Empty objects won't show up in the rendered scene. Now press the camera and go to the object constraints and select track to and use the drop down to track it to the sphere. So now the camera will be tracked to the sphere, which means that we can more easily control where the camera is looking. Now go to the camera here, down here to the right, go to the viewport display and do so it's black on the sides, which makes it easier to focus. Now press these 2 things to remove all the lines and stuff so we get a clear view of the camera. We might also want to do the frame to a square, so just do 2160 on both here, like that. Now we want to see what it looks like as a shader, so go to the viewport shading here, and as you can see we see like nothing because there are no lights on the scene. So the most important thing before we start shading is to add a lamp or lightning. So I'm going to add a sunlight first, so press Shift A and search for sun, and then move it back on the Y-axis by pressing G and Y. Go to the side view, X view here, and then rotate it so it looks on the camera. And then press G to move it up so it's not in the way. And then you can go to the top view and maybe do so it's like looks a bit from the side, like that. So I think that looks kind of cool as a start. Now we're going to add the base material for the camera. And when you add like materials, it can be easier to do this in the shading mode here, viewport shading, because it's going to be less laggy. So now we're going to go to the drop down here and go to the shader editor. And we can see that we can add a new material. So we're going to do that. And I want this phone to be blue. So I'm going to select the blue color and lower the roughness a bit. Then I'm going to show you something cool. I want to add some bumps, so surface imperfections. And to do that, I'm going to press Shift A to add noise. And I'm going to select the noise and put it into output so we can get a clear view. Now, I want to add, if you have Node Wrangler on, you can press this and Control T to get the nodes. If you don't have the Node Wrangler on, just Google it. It's going to take like 2 minutes to set it up. Google something like how to get Node Wrangler add-on Blender. I won't show it in this tutorial because there are so many people that shows how you do it. So yeah, now we have a mapping, a texture coordinate, and we don't need to do anything special. The only thing we want to do is to connect the object to the vector. And now we have a noise here, and scale down the noise because the noise is going to be the bumps, where the bumps are, and the surface imperfections. Maybe something like this. You see that they are also stretching a bit, and that's because we have stretched out the phone a bit. So press the phone and press Command A to scale. And now we get much more even bumps. So yeah, now actually we're going to reconnect the color here to the output. And then we're going to search for a bump. And then we're going to connect the normal to the normal and the factor to the height. And now you can see we get bumps. Very much too many bumps. So do it to 0.1. So we're going to just be a little bit of bumps. And as you can see here on the left in the shading, it looks really ugly. And that's because we need to fix the world shading. So we don't want to have this gray color. Also, one thing we want to do is to duplicate the background and then search for a mix shader and put it here and connect this to this. What we want to do now is to have one tab where we can control the lighting of the scene and one tab where we can control the color. To do this, we will need to add a light path and connect in-camera array. And the next step is to add an HDRI. If you don't know what it is, you will know it by just Googling really fast, because there are also a lot of people out there explaining what an HDRI are. And I'm not going to show exactly what it is, but essentially you want to press the background here and press Control T, and we get these things. And now you want to download an HDRI and open it here. So now I have an HDRI here, and I'm going to lower the strength to 0.5 because I don't want the full strength of the HDRI, just a little bit. And now we can change the background color here to maybe a bluish, something like that. And as you can see, we need more lightning. So before we keep on shading, I want to add more area lights. Press Shift A and search for an area light. And then go to the side view and press G and rotate it by pressing R. Go to the top view, press G to move it to the side and rotate it so it looks from the side on the phone. Something like that. You can scale it up so the light becomes wider. And then we're going to go to the lamp here and turn up the power to maybe like, yes, where you feel like, where you're satisfied with the lighting. And we're going to do the same thing. We can actually duplicate it and just move it around. Can maybe move it from the background here. So we get a glimmer here, something like that. And we can move it from the other side here. Something like this, maybe. Or maybe we want it to come from the top instead, like that. Yeah, just according to your taste. We're going to keep on refining the material here from the phone. So we're going to go back to the object and maybe make it a little bit darker, like this. I also like to add subsurface texture on the phone. Subsurface is like you can add it for like skin because it changes how the light travels through the object. I want to do it here because it looks a little bit cooler, I think. So I'm gonna increase the weight and then turn the scale to maybe like 1. So you see it changes. It becomes a bit more red-like. And now we want to add color to the buttons. So we're going to add a new material, and this material won't be that crazy. You're just going to make it like more dark blue maybe. Play around with the roughness. The lower roughness, the more shiny it becomes. Then add the material for the buttons. Maybe we can keep them white actually. Also, we want to add a metallic material for the side here. We can select the white and press new and just increase the metallic. And for the frame here, I think we want to keep it the same as the buttons. So I'm going to select the frame and then the buttons, and then press Command L and link materials so they become the same. Very cool. Now we're actually getting really close to the finished phone. The last thing you want to do is to add like a screen here or something. I happen to have a screen that I fit for this, but you can have like a fun screen recording you have from your iPhone or anything. So yeah, now I have my screen in there. And now we can start like focusing on the aesthetic layout of the phone. So maybe I want it to tilt it first. So go to the side view and press R and rotate it a bit. And then go into the front view and press R, Z to rotate it on the Z axis. Maybe something like that. See, that looks really cool. One thing we might want to do now is to do a test render and see what it looks like. So I'm going to render it with these settings and in this resolution. So now let's see what it looks like. Yeah. I'm kind of happy with the result here. One thing we can do now is to don't close it. Instead, go to the Compositing tab and press Use Nodes. And then, if you have the node wrangler selected, you can press Shift, Control and press Render. And you will see the phone in the background. Now we're going to add some final touches to the phone. So the first thing I want to do is to add a glare. And put it between the render here and the view so we can see it. And you can see it becomes like glossy. I actually want to change it to this no, I want to keep it on streaks. And I want to adjust some settings. So I don't really have like a go-to setting, but maybe increase the fade to make it bigger, the glossiness bigger, but decrease the strength and maybe turn up the threshold a bit so it doesn't react on everything. Maybe something like that. And I also like to add a lens. So press Shift A and search for a lens. And then add some dispersion here. And do add just a little bit. So 0.1 maybe. So if you add a 1, you will see it becomes really intense. And you also want to select fit here so it fits the screen. So yeah, you don't want that. You just want a little bit. Maybe 0.15. And that would be the max. No, I would go for probably 0.05 actually. And a little bit of distortion so it becomes wide, maybe 0.07. No, that's too much. 0.03 maybe? Maybe even like 2. Yeah, that can be good. And yeah, just play around with the strength and threshold, maybe lower the threshold a little bit. And make sure it also goes out in the compositive render. And we will render it and see what it looks like with the compositing. Yeah, I'm kind of satisfied with the results here. I'm going to put a little animation of the phone here at the end. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And if you have any questions, let me know down below. Let me know what you want to see me model or create in the future. Also, I mostly actually do music stuff. So if you have any music questions or music production tutorial requests, let me know. Also, make sure to subscribe, check out my Instagram and my Spotify. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.